Hello, everybody. I'm Renato Sabbadini. I'm the CEO of All Digital, a European federation of digital competences throughout Europe. I'm here today with Professor Robert Wintemute, who teaches human rights law at King's College in London. Robert, thank you very much for joining us. And so, London the whole of the UK, I guess, went in lockdown today. But you, if I'm not mistaken, have been already teaching remotely for at least a week or so?
Yes, I think it was the 12th of March that we got a notice that our teaching would move online by the 23rd of March, and that the week of the 16th would be a transition week. We were also told that the traditional in-person exams would be canceled in May, and that there would be take-home exams instead submitted online. So the week of the 16th, I had been expecting to travel, so I had rearranged my classes. So the week of the 16th was what were my last classes. And I did them all with Microsoft Teams. And let's say over the 3 classes, it got better. But the first one, I couldn't understand why I couldn't see the students. So finally in the middle, I realized, have you turned your cameras on? So that eventually I got a bit better at that, but I may have not been using the platform correctly, but I couldn't see more than 4 students at a time. And the attendance was reduced, but I might have expected maybe up to 15 students in each of these groups. So yeah, I mean, the ones actually attending online, there might have been 8 to 10 maybe. But so I think let's say university professors, university teachers are a bit insecure about their jobs in the modern technological age with outsourcing, etc. And we feel quite threatened by online initiatives, because especially if you're teaching in English, the question arises, why couldn't someone in India do this for much less? So actually I found this experience of online teaching quite reassuring, because it was not nearly as good as being in the classroom.
What are the main differences?
Well, the main difference is being able to see all students at once. Now maybe I wasn't using Zoom as we are, and I've heard good things said about it. I mean, the way it sounds to me, if I had all the students around the periphery of the screen and then the one speaking Zoom, that would help the interaction. But I had my screen divided in 4, and I could see 4 students. And because of the awkward, I suppose it was the awkward situation that none of us was used to, neither the teacher nor the students. There was much less discussion, many fewer questions or comments. By the 3rd one, I finally got some students who were asking as many questions as they would in the classroom. But yeah, it's a substitute. It's better than canceling the class altogether, but not something I would want to do on a regular basis.
But didn't you, in your experience, have conferences in the past, teleconferences with other colleagues in other parts of the world, where you would have used the technology as well? Or
I would say generally just one-to-one with Skype. The most technologically advanced situation I found myself in would have been 2013, was a PhD viva or defense oral examination, in which one examiner was in the US and one in London, and we had the candidate. We ended up having 2 different rooms in London with 2 different laptops plus the laptop in the US. We managed to make it work, but yeah, no, I don't generally, I don't do group teleconferencing. So I just had a meeting of 3 this morning that went pretty well. Tomorrow it'll be a bigger group. So yeah, it's
how do you, well, on one hand, what kind of support do the student need most now? And how do you manage to motivate them?
Well, the way our calendar works, this is the last week of teaching, and then there's a 3-week break or so, 3 to 4 weeks, and then we have a revision classes and then exam. So this is a period when normally they would be on their own studying for their exams. But I think what's most upsetting for them is the new exam format. So they only have prior years to go on. Now we're trying to reassure them by saying, well, it'll be similar, but how do you replicate the conditions of a 3-hour examination in a room where you can control access? Some of our exams are closed book, as we call them. You must remember everything. You can't consult anything. Others are open book. You can bring materials in.
Yeah.
We can control the materials if we want to. And of course, you have the time. The 2 advantages of the traditional exam is the time limit, and we know that nobody's helped you during the exam. So we're switching to a 24-hour take-home format.
Okay.
And so this will raise questions about, are the students getting assistance they shouldn't be? And the students' worry is that we'll expect a lot more of their answers because they'll be typing them, they have more time. And so they're not really sure what to expect. I'm trying to tell them, well, yes, we will expect a bit more, just in the sense that your answer should be a little bit more polished, not as sloppy. You have time to read through it, correct errors. But on the other hand, it's not a dissertation, a thesis. You don't have weeks or months to go do extra research. So we're expecting the students to apply what they've already learned in the classes. So yeah, it's just a period of great uncertainty for everyone. And we're just adapting as quickly and as quickly as we can.
Can you imagine, well, maybe it's too soon, but can you imagine adopting something that you are using now or that you are implementing now and keeping it for when things will go back to normal? Is there something that you are observing in your interaction with students or in your work in general that you think, this might come up, become useful once all this is finished?
I haven't come across anything yet. I suppose, in a sense, I'm a traditionalist. We have, for the last few years, had the question of lecture capture. So recording classes so that students can watch them online later. And I have always opted out of that because I couldn't see what incentive there would be to go to class. And so, yeah, I see the online teaching as a substitute. Now, if I were teaching some international class, I actually once taught for the Punjab Judicial Academy in Lahore from my office by video link. So when it's necessary, it's fine. And the advantage of that was I could discuss more sensitive issues at a safe distance. So I think I mentioned the blasphemy law and asked why were there no women in the classroom. And I said, well, we do have women judges. They're not here today, etc. So yeah, I mean, when there's physical distance involved, yes, there can be great benefits from the use of the internet. But when the norm is physical presence on a campus in a classroom, I think it's better to stick to that. So that's the teaching side of things. On the basically a university professor's job consists of teaching, research, and administration. So the research part, actually, many academics like to work at home. So they would not be affected in any way by the current shutdown. Increasingly, if you're not, your research doesn't involve books, you don't necessarily need a library, you don't necessarily need even the books in your office.
Yeah.
So that's where the effect is, or where the effects are minimal. Administration, I just had a meeting this morning with two colleagues of another tomorrow. Again, I'd say it's a substitute, but it's really this problem of getting multiple images on a screen.
Yeah.
So you can see and hear everyone at the same time. So I was using Microsoft Teams this morning, and I don't really know how to use it properly, but it was alternating the image according to who was speaking. So I didn't actually have the two people on my screen at the same time. They did, but I hadn't worked it out. And it wasn't bad because there were only two, and it would go back and forth depending on who was speaking. But, you know, if you have a meeting of 10, 15, 20 people, it's really, I just think it's really difficult to manage electronically.
Well, yes. I mean, technically it's feasible. I know that, for instance, the Green Group at the European Parliament is currently meeting. I think they're also using Microsoft Teams as a platform. There is a limit to the, I think they managed to get 21 or 25 images, but the group is obviously larger. So that can become a problem eventually, in the sense that although it is technically possible to get everyone to speak, probably it imposes, because I think this is different from a lesson, from a university lesson where maybe you have a Q&A session at the end, but usually you would expect at the beginning to speak uninterrupted for a certain while. Whereas in a political kind of meeting, usually the assumption is that anyone can interrupt at any moment. But in that case, they usually have to adopt a stricter agenda, order of business, and people must, you know, if they have to speak, they have to ask it to via a chat, the chat and things like that. So it's not unfeasible, but it's definitely can prolong the duration of the meeting.
Yes, I would say in universities there are large lectures which could be anywhere from 100 to, in France, 600 students. In that situation, one person is speaking, there isn't much discussion, there aren't many questions. So the electronic format works fine. Most of my classes have up to 20 to 25 students, no more than 20 to 25 students. So there's an expectation that it's more like your political meeting. There's an expectation that they will interrupt me.
I see.
At any time, yeah. So that is much easier in the classroom. The phrase that comes to mind is faute de mieux. So yeah, so the online class is better than canceling the class. But if the epidemic is over, then we will rush back to the classroom. And similarly, if your own friendships, if the option is meeting in a cafe or talking on a Skype when you live in the same city or even the same neighborhood, You'd prefer the cafe, but if you can't, it's a fallback, I would say, generally, because human face-to-face contact and face-to-face, it has two meanings, because the video makes you think you're face-to-face, but it's not the same as being sitting in the same room as the person, let's say. So, yeah. So I think we should acknowledge the benefits of this technology, but also its limitations, and when other forms of contact are more desirable.
Robert Wintemute, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.